The former head of Murder Inc. had mellowed with age. In time, he developed a reputation for generosity, offering to help Neapolitans in need.
In the morning, when I used to come here, I would see 7, 8 people waiting for Lucky Luciano outside the restaurant. And these people would say to him, "Mr. Lucky, Mr. Luciano, my husband is unemployed." To some, Mr. Luciano gave 30,000 liras, to some 20,000. In some cases, he would pay for a doctor to visit sick people at home. It's incredible how much good this man did.
Luciano took on the appearance of a legitimate businessman. A few yards from the Naples landmark Castel dell'Ovo, he opened a hospital supply store. It would help him to distract authorities and camouflage the income he received from his dope operation and his American associates. The mafia lord lived a very comfortable life.
Whenever he could, he would go out to the racetrack, the Agnano racetrack. He used to place big bets on safe horses. Then he would go out to the islands in the Bay, Capri and Ischia.
At night, Lucky could be seen with his mistress at the magnificent Teatro San Carlo or at the restaurant Zi Teresa on the Santa Lucia waterfront. But Luciano's dolce vita didn't last long. In 1958, Igea, his girlfriend of 9 years and the love of his life, died of cancer. It was a devastating loss.
After her death, he didn't want to talk about her anymore, because he suffered when he talked about her. The only woman he loved in his life was Igea, in the real sense of love and affection.
After Igea's death, Lucky's life started to unravel. His relationship with the American mob grew strained. The other bosses felt he was grabbing more than his share of the profits from the heroin business. The checks he received from the U.S. syndicate got smaller and smaller. Then in 1959, Lucky and the mob had a rude awakening. When Fidel Castro took over from Batista in Cuba, Castro closed the casinos and shut down the heroin pipeline. The mob lost millions. So the aging Luciano, looking for a new scheme, hatched the idea of making a movie about his life with a producer from Spain. The boss was assured that Dean Martin was going to play the lead role since he and Dean had a friend in common, Frank Sinatra.
And then he said, well, maybe I better check it out with the boys back in New York. And so he told them about this idea, and they held a meeting and they say, no, if you make this film, it will make things so terrible for all of us. There would be virtual history of organized crime in America with you as the big shot, that it could conceivably bring the law down on us so heavily. So they told Lucky that if he went ahead and made the film, he would be killed.
Lucky retaliated by threatening to cut off his American associates from their supply of heroin, and he did not give up on his plans to make the film. It was more than the mafia in New York could tolerate. They took out a contract on his life. Tipped off that he was in danger, Lucky secluded himself in his penthouse on Via Tasso. His health was deteriorating. His chest pains returned and his blood pressure rose. In 1961, Luciano was hospitalized with a heart ailment. On the morning of January 26, 1962, Lucky stopped in at the California to place an order for lunch.
It was around 11 o'clock when he came in and asked for salt cod Sicilian style. And the maitre d' said, okay. He said, I'll be back at 1:30. I'm just going to Capodichino Airport to pick up someone.
And he went up to the airport in Naples to welcome the producer who was flying in to discuss the film project. And then, after he had welcomed him and they went to the parking lot to the car, he was suddenly stricken by a terrible heart attack.
Charles Lucky Luciano died instantly. He was 64. Luciano's funeral was a majestic procession through Naples. Mourners lined the streets. In death, his wish to come home to America had been granted. His body was flown to New York and buried in a Catholic cemetery in Queens. Over the years, there has been speculation that the former king of the underworld was poisoned by the mob.
Some people said he was killed, some people said that he was poisoned. It's not true at all. The truth is that he died from a heart attack. He really suffered from a weak heart, and we knew it.
Charles Lucky Luciano left a legacy that is still with us today. Organized crime.
If you can apply the word genius to crime, Lucky Luciano was a genius, because to take this disorganized mass of crooks, gamblers, and murderers, thieves, and whatnot, and build them into a structured organization was a remarkable achievement.
There's a sense of power this man generated in seducing everybody around him. You looked in his eyes, you wouldn't look too long. It's a little frightening. That was power too, very powerful.
It wasn't that he was more violent than the other guys. It wasn't that he was more dangerous. Luciano was able to control his emotions and preserve equanimity when things got hot. And somehow he inspired confidence in the other guys that he was the one, that he was the leader.
He structured the La Cosa Nostra as it has continued to this very day. You could not have a good understanding of the history of organized crime in the United States without having studied Charles Lucky Luciano.
It was a year after Luciano's death that mob informants began spilling some of the dirtiest secrets of the crime syndicate at Senate hearings. Lucky Luciano helped make the mob what it is today, but it is not the untouchable group it was when he was the boss.